What's up, guys? I'm kind of doing a journaling for the week that just ended. So the week that started the 2nd of September, which was an NFP week as well. And I'm just watching my pre-market analysis from last weekend for last week and the month ahead, and just comparing how the week played out and what were my predictions in comparisons to how the week played out, and just trying to understand where I was during the week in comparison to my pre-market analysis, and what happened, what didn't happen, why certain things happened, certain things didn't happen. So yeah, let's just get into it. So watching my video from the pre-market analysis from last week, I was expecting, because we were so close to this fair value gap on the weekly time frame going into the week, my prediction was that we will most likely come down to this fair value gap and find support. However, as the week played out, as you can see, right, because I'm doing this after the week's finished, price in fact did not reach that fair value gap. I was in fact waiting the whole week pretty much for price to reach down to that level. So because of that, I was quite blinded by everything else that was going on in the market. Not blinded, but I kind of ignored the bullish momentum that picked up before price reached that weekly time frame fair value gap. So yeah, during my pre-market analysis, I noted, right, we closed below this 50% off the daily time frame fair value gap. Because we closed below that 50%, I anticipated price to push down to clear the rest of that fair value gap and tap into at least the low and the start of this fair value gap, which is where I was looking for any trading opportunities. My other prediction was also that if we were to reach down to this fair value gap, right, we could pull back into this bearish fair value gap on the daily time frame, which is below this breaker block, and find some resistance and then push down. However, let's get rid of this. As we can see, as the week folded, we didn't hold this fair value gap, we held the next one. And because the order flow on the weekly time frame has been bullish, we've got bullish momentum coming in. We took out this high, so a retracement after taking out this high was likely, and we've got that on the daily time frame, especially where we've got essentially a breaker block being closed below, essentially a market structure shift. And when you see an entry like this, normally at 618 entry is what you'd take on a lower time frame. Because it was an NFP week, and I was quite hesitant on taking positions throughout the week, and I didn't do as particularly well as the previous week. I still want to see how price played out. So yeah, I wanted price to at least come to this daily time frame fair value gap and find resistance, and then come down to this level, or I was expecting price to come down to this level and find some kind of support for the bullish run. As the week went on, Monday was it's fine. Monday was just Monday, and then on Tuesday we came down, took out this low, took out this fair value gap, the rest of the fair value gap. As you can see, because this was a bearish engulfing candle, after seeing that candle, I was pretty much convinced that we would come down to this low and find some kind of support. But if you watch ICT, and you expect because it's a bullish order flow, and had I gone into the week thinking of price being bullish, this would have been a great entry, because we took out Monday's low, created the low on Tuesday, and on the 4-hour time frame we start to displace with bullish order flow and bullish fair value gaps, which is where I would look for an entry, which is normally what I'd do. However, this week I have no idea what happened. I was completely blindsided by waiting for price to come down to this weekly time frame fair value gap, and then price came and tapped that fair value gap where he found small resistance. However, given the momentum that picked up after rejecting this daily time frame fair value gap, we end the next day being even more bullish. And after that, I was predicting price to come into this fair value gap. In fact, I was predicting price to come into this breaker block. Let's be honest, I was waiting for price to come to the 50% of that breaker block. Because of that, I didn't even consider this fair value gap. So yeah, I was predicting price, to come to this fair value gap, find resistance, and go down that level. Because of that, I didn't really pay attention to this fair value gap, and because we started this bullish order flow on, this is Thursday, on Friday, NFP day, I honestly didn't even cross my mind to look for an entry around these levels. And Friday comes, NFP day, and during NFP we reject those highs, that daily time frame fair value gap, and then close with this bearish candle. That's a nice rejection candle. So prediction wise, before going into the week, I was saying price might come down to the fair value gap, find support, but I still expect price to clear that weekly time frame fair value gap, and it does look like we came up, not to this bearish fair value gap, not the first one, but the second one, and also held the order breaker block as well. And maybe now we will make our way down to this, weekly time frame fair value gap next week. Had I just had my mindset on bullish for the week, because we've got bullish momentum, we created this almost an inside bar candle, and we took out that previous week's low. I was hoping we would come to that fair value gap first and then find support the whole week. And once we didn't do that, I kind of got thrown off, and I couldn't really readjust my prediction and my analysis, and that just is something I need to improve on, obviously, because after price didn't come down to this fair value gap, the weekly time frame fair value gap, and start to displace up, I kind of got thrown away. And NFP day, I didn't really want to trade at all anyway until NFP news. And when the news did come out, I got blind. I wasn't sure whether price was going to continue higher up to that level. And then after I saw it reject this level, it's like, oh yeah, it's quite obvious. However, that's not for a big concern, because that just shows me that price is holding that level now, and we might continue down to this weekly time frame fair value gap, which means we'll probably get we'll get shorting opportunities going into the week. Going into Tuesday, I predicted that price might take out previous day's highs and then drop down to this weekly time frame fair value gap. Before predicting that, I predicted maybe that price would come up to these fair value gaps at 1.1 and then drop down to the weekly time frame fair value gap. But seeing the bearish momentum and how close to the weekly time frame fair value gap it was at, the fair value gap at 1.102, or 1.101, I was expecting price to take out previous day's highs and then drop down. However, on the lower time frames, on the 60-minute, I saw that price had started to displace already with this bearish fair value gaps during the London Open. And after seeing this, I was predicting that price might pull back into this fair value gap and then push down. But because price had come into this bullish fair value gap, I wasn't too keen on that trade. However, price then pushes down, comes back up, takes out a swing high, right? And then if my prediction was still that price was going to go down to these weekly time frame fair value gap, this would have been a great area for entry after price took out a swing high, and this is the most recent swing high that we can see. Then we eventually come into we closed above the initial fair value gap that I was expecting price to find resistance at, and then pushed up and held the next one. On Tuesday, after the Tuesday's close, so this bearish engulfing candle that held this daily time frame fair value gap, and because the fact that it's so close to this third fair value gap at the weekly time frame fair value gap, also at 1.101 to 1.102, I was predicting price to come down to these lows going into Wednesday. But I completely ignored the fact that we are in discount. We just came and cleared out quite a strong fair value gap on Tuesday, and I was blindsided by anything else going on, because I was predicting price to come down to 1.102 to 1.101 at that weekly time frame fair value gap and at that third daily time frame fair value gap. Because of that, I ignored the bullish displacement on the 240 time frame, which price obviously came down and held, as you can see, right? This is the 240 bullish fair value gap. Yeah, so going into Thursday, although I was bullish and that I was expecting price to reach 1.101 at that bearish fair value gap, I was expecting it to find resistance and come down to, you know, these lows at 1.101, the weekly time frame fair value gap during NFP. And then going into Friday, after seeing this Thursday close, I kind of changed my entire bias. I now started looking at the higher time frame, weekly time frame, thinking, oh, we are in a bullish order flow, and we have started to see bullish order flow on the lower time frames. And now I was expecting price to come up to back to these highs at 1.12 after seeing this Thursday's close above this bullish fair value gap, this bearish fair value gap. So after it closed above the 1.11 bearish fair value gap, I completely ignored the daily breaker, the bearish fair value gap, the second one deep in discount, and I was aiming for the 1.12 highs. But I also said that it could come into these levels and drop to this weekly time frame fair value gap. So because it was NFP, I wasn't sure, and I didn't really want to make any long-term predictions, and I wanted to watch what price was doing. And when NFP did come out with a strong momentum, let's just see what it was like on the lower time frame, especially this candle. I completely ignored where we were in the high time frame and didn't really take any shots because I wasn't sure whether price was going to hold this level or it was going to blast through that level and take out the 1.12. But it held it with a strong pin bar going into next week, and now that gives me a better direction for next week and more confident on the fact that we might come and clear the rest of this fair value gap. So that's my post-market analysis on my pre-market analysis for every day of the last week. Just something for me to, you know, try to understand where I was before going into the day and where I ended up being after the day. It's not about being right or wrong, but more about trying to understand which support PD arrays are being held and what, if there was a reason behind it, where was the drawn liquidity going into the week, and like how did price get to that drawn liquidity. And you know, if I was bullish going into the week, which I mean, it's really, if you look at a weekly time frame price action, I would have said we are a bit bullish, taking out previous week's low and then taking out Monday's low, holding a daily time frame fair value gap and displacing up, right? It's such a bullish thing to do. And then on Friday, which is not a day that you want to be looking for bullish continuation anyway, it comes into another higher time frame PD array, which a strong one, deep in discount or premium for shorts, and finds resistance during NFP. So yep, going into the week, had I been bullish, obviously this is hindsight, but if I had been bullish, then I would have waited for Monday's low to be taken out. But because I was bearish, I was waiting for Monday's high to be taken out. It didn't. Monday's low got taken out, and then we took out Monday's high with a strong close. Then I switched my bias to bullish to take out these fair value gaps, which it did. And then after price took out those fair value gaps, I predicted price to go even higher to these highs, which was, I mean, anything could have happened during NFP, right? We also displaced and put this fair value gap, which was even more of a confirmation to me that, you know, we push higher up on Friday. And that's that for euro dollar. I'm going to do a separate video on pound dollar.